In this watercolor tutorial, I am going to show you how to paint glass with watercolor, and the glass subject that we will be painting will be a light bulb that has a cute little plant inside. You can find the reference picture down below in the description of this video, along with the outline here that you can download and print off and transfer onto your watercolor paper. To transfer my outline, I use graphite transfer paper, but you can also use a light pad or any other kind of transfer method that you prefer. Before I get started, I will go over the supplies that I'm using. So here is my Etcher sketchbook, and the size of my paper is 5 by 7 inches. And the paints that I will be using today is this Essence pan set here from Art Philosophy. This is a glimpse of the colors. I plan on using blues and this green and mix another kind of green color and then brown. So you basically need blue, green, some kind of brown, and even gray. So those are the main colors if you don't have this pan set. And I plan on using my silver black velvet brushes. So I have a size 8 brush, a size 4, and a size 2 brush. These are round. And I also have a size 1 script brush. And all of the supplies that I just shared with you are linked down below for you in the description of this video if you would like to check them out on Amazon or Blick. The very first thing that I am going to do is I'm going to paint the lightest areas of the light bulb first. So I will be using my large brush here, my size 8 brush, and I think I'm going to start with the lightest area up here. So if you look at the reference picture, there's a highlight in the glass. So I'm going to paint this like a very, very light blue color. And then there is also a highlight in this part of the light bulb as well, and a little bit right here. So I'm going to paint in that highlight with a very light blue that is basically white. And first I'm going to clear off an area on my palette. So I'm just going to take this blue right here. This is the Emotion color, and this pan set is called Emotion. So I'm just going to take a little bit of that and add a lot of water, because this is how we make a light color with watercolor. We add a lot of water to it, in case you weren't aware. I'm going to add this here. Painting around the leaf. And it's okay if you add this in areas where it's not very light, because you can always paint over light colors with dark colors. So I'm not too worried if I add this in a dark area. And I'll probably add some of this where there's dirt, like down here, because there is some highlights in the glass down here. Now I'm going to clean my brush. And next I'm going to paint in the lightest areas that I see in the dirt. So the dirt has like a very light sandy brown color, so I think I'm going to use Chant right here, and maybe I'll mix a little bit of this gray. So if you don't have this pan set, mix a little bit of gray into brown. So I'm taking Chant, and I think I'm just going to add it right here in this area. Add a lot of water to it, because you do want this to be light. And then I'm going to add some of that gray. If you paint this right next to the light blue, make sure that the light blue is dry. It's still wet in some areas, so I'm just going to start over here. So A lot of this area here has like dark brown, but there are some light brown areas. So I might just fill in a lot of this dirt with this light brown. So I can always paint dark brown on top, but you can't do it the other way. You can't paint light brown on top of dark brown. And then as I get to the outer edge where there's like a light, that light blue, I'm just gonna kind of wiggle my brush and kind of blend it into that blue slightly. And I'm trying to mimic the shapes of the outer part of the dirt. There are some rocks and bumps and just, you know, the texture of the dirt. And then right here, the dirt pile kind of piles up right here and touches the edge of the glass. So there's like a line here. And then it continues this way. But I'm just going to fill this all in. I can still see my line from my outline right here. I can still see it. I mean, even if I can't still see it once I paint right here, it's okay because I can always just paint it in later by looking at the reference. And then there are some rocks over here. I'm just going to kind of paint in where they could be. Next, we'll paint in the first layer on the leaves here. So you want to clean your brush. And I'm going to use this green color from the pan set. Basically just use whatever green you want to use. So I'm going to take this green here and add a lot of water to it because we want this to be very, very light. We're basically painting the highlights of the leaf. I might also add a little bit of yellow to it because as I look at the lightest part of the leaves, it's kind of like a yellow green. So I'm going to add a little bit of this yellowy color from the pan set in here. And I'll go ahead and just paint in all of the leaves with this color. And I'm going to take another brush here, my size 4 brush. It just has some water in it, and this will just help me kind of move around this paint and fill in the leaf. And that way I don't add a ton of paint, because if I just use this and paint everywhere with it, it has a lot of paint in this brush. So this will just help me kind of paint with not as much paint, if that makes sense. It helps me spread the paint around and paint as light as I can. And if you add too much paint or it's too dark, you can always wipe some away with your brush like this and wipe it on your paper towel. And there, this is basically the first layer of this painting, and we'll let it completely dry and start on the second layer. Alright, so we painted the lightest areas of the light bulb, so now we need to paint in the midtones. So I'm going to first paint in, I think, the background around the leaves, because the leaves here are the focal point, and I will probably paint the most detailed. So I'm going to paint around them first, and probably the dirt, work my way over here, and then maybe paint in the leaves after all of that. The midtones that I see in the blue area is darker blue. I see some turquoise, so I'm going to make like a turquoise, or just use Eternity here from this pan set, which I think is this one. And I'm still using my size 8 brush, at least for now. And I don't want this to be too dark, so I am mixing maybe about 50% water into this, so 50% pigment, 50% water. And then I'm going to have another brush that I'll use to blend. So this is my size 8 Princeton Neptune brush. It just has some water in it that I will use to blend. I am going to add some of this turquoise like over here. And it's important with glass when you paint in the reflections that you see in it that you follow the contour of the glass. So the contour of this light bulb is round right here, so we need to make sure that we follow that. We don't want to make strokes like this. So really look at the highlights and see how they follow the contour. So I'm going to add some, like right here. Take my blending brush. I did add a little bit of water to it again. Kind of blend this. Maybe a little bit over here as well. You don't have to blend too too smooth. You don't have to blend too smooth, because if you look at the highlights, some of them are not smooth. They're like kind of harsh looking. So yeah, there's like one that's like this on top. And a lot of this I will be painting over right here with like a darker blue, but I'm okay like using this color for now because some of this will show underneath that dark blue. Okay, so I'm going to make my way this way. I'm not going to follow the reference perfectly, but I'm going to do my best. But it's not going to look exactly like it. And I kind of made a mistake. I painted outside of the light bulb right here. That's alright. I'm just going to leave it. If you do that and you end up not liking that, you can always paint some white gouache right here on the outside, which I might do. Okay, I'm going to follow the contour right here. There's like a harsh shadow in the highlight. That is right here. I'm going to paint that in. If you paint some of this turquoise in the dirt, that is totally fine. And then I do see some blue kind of down here, so I'm going to add some blue. And then I see some blue over here. I'm going to take my blending brush, blend this a little bit into that highlight, but I'm not going to blend too smoothly. I was going to say smoothie again. Apparently I have smoothies on my mind. I did have one today, in fact. Okay, I think I'll add some maybe right here. I'm just using my blending brush, but I'm going to leave this harsh edge right there. But there's like a soft turquoise color right there, so I'm going to blend this now. There. And I'm also going to add a little bit of this turquoise in the dirt. It'll just help make this look more cohesive. We don't want the dirt to just be brown and the outer part to just be blue. We want to kind of bring in those colors everywhere. It'll just make it look better. And I'm also going to add some of this to the leaf. Not where the highlight is though of the leaf. Like right here on the side of the leaf is the highlight, so I don't want to paint right there. This is my blending brush. I'm just kind of blending this that way, and I'll add some over here as well. Next, I'm going to add some of the midtones in the dirt. So I will go ahead and take, I'm thinking Awake, this dark reddish brown here, maybe mix a little bit of this other brown into it. So you just basically need a brown. And I already have some on my palette here. I'm just going to take some water, reactivate it. And because this is a little darker than that lightest brown we painted earlier, we don't want to mix as much water into it. So for my brown, I'm basically mixing maybe 30% water. I have to do math. 70% paint. Okay, and then again, I will have this other brush with me to blend. And I'm going to start at the base of the plant because that is where it's the darkest. And this is actually pretty dark. It might be too dark. I'm going to take my blending brush, blend it this way, down. I'm also looking at the reference, trying to mimic the texture I see, dabbing and wiggling my brush, dropping in a little bit more paint, letting it blend. And I'm cleaning my blending brush and then using my blending brush and blending this out. I also want to make sure that I keep some of that lighter brown unpainted. That is like the highlight of the dirt. Add a little bit more dark brown. Switch to my blending brush. Dab, wiggle. Okay, then we have that line right here, so I'm going to paint that in. Take my blending brush and blend the bottom part of that line. And then drag the paint I have in this brush now from doing that over here to extend that line. Drop in a little bit more paint where it's the darkest. I'm going to go back over here, drop in some dark paint. This area of my paper is still wet, so I'm taking advantage of that and adding more dark to build up the shadows. And you can also mix another kind of brown. You don't have to use the same brown. In fact, I encourage you to mix different kinds of browns, because when you look at the reference, you will see all the kinds of browns that are in the dirt. It's not just one color brown. Switch to my blending brush. And then again, be careful not to paint over all of that lighter brown that we see. Then as we go over here, the dirt is not as dark, and there seems to be maybe some rocks or clumps of dirt. I'm just going to kind of draw them in lightly. Blend. Okay, and take more brown over here, add some more. Alright, now I'm going to work on this part of the light bulb. So the next darkest after this turquoise that I see is like a darker blue, maybe a Prussian blue. So with this pan set, to mix a dark blue, I think I'm going to mix Creation into Eternity or Creation into Nirvana. So use whatever kind of dark blue you want to use. This is actually the perfect, the exact color I need. And I'm mixing, I guess maybe about 50-50, 50% water into 50% paint. Of course, I'm going to have my blending brush. In this color, if you look closely at this area, there's a highlight here, and it's actually kind of more of a yellowy highlight, but I didn't really paint yellow here, but it's fine. So I'm going to paint above that highlight and then below that highlight that we see. So I'm going to add some paint, switch to my blending brush, blend this up to make a gradient. And I still have this color in my brush from blending, so I'm going to move it over here and paint in those crevices that are on this area of the, I don't know what this is called, of the light bulb. Add a little bit more, blend. Then when we get over here, this is a little darker than those other areas, and it doesn't have a highlight. Then I'm painting this part when this area is dark, and then blend, but I do want that highlight right here, so again I'm making like a gradient. I should have blended this part, which I think I still can. Just looks a little too harsh. So I'm taking my blending brush and just scrubbing. There we go. Okay, and then over here at this very end, it's basically black except there's a little highlight here and then maybe here, and I'm just going to add a little bit of this color because I do want some of it to show through. We don't want it to just be black right here. Okay, and while this is still wet, I'm going to go ahead and drop in even more and just, oh, I guess it's not that wet anymore. It's still blending. So I'm just going to drop in some more and work the outline a little bit. I can't really see my outline anymore, but I don't think I did this very well right here. Like the dips. It's fine. Switching to my blending brush. Alright, and I want to put this blue somewhere else, not just right here. Hold on, I'm going to blend this real quick. It's becoming a little too... Okay, anyways, I want to add this blue elsewhere, not just right there. It'll just make this painting look more cohesive and just flow better. And also this blue, I feel like is actually in some areas. Like I see it right here in the reflection and right here. And even maybe in the dirt as well and part of the leaves. So I will add some right here. I'm not going to paint at the very edge of the glass light bulb. I'm going to leave some of that and paint it and take my blending brush and move it up, following the contour of the glass. Blending some areas and keeping some areas not blended because of the reflection of whatever it is, trees or whatever. You know, it's not super blendy. There are some harsh areas of the reflection. Again, And I might even add some like right here. Going in with my blending brush. Letting this kind of overlap on that leaf a little bit because this is the glass right now that I'm painting. Take more of that blue and add some over here. My blending brush. Try not to cover up all of this turquoise. And then here, it's pretty dark. Painting around the rocks, or at least trying to. Yeah, this is pretty difficult. This is challenging right now. So I feel like the looser you are, the better it'll look. So don't try to really paint what you see. Try and make it super perfect. Okay, I'm now going to add this dark blue over here in the dirt. So in the darkest areas of the dirt, we want to add this. Blend, dabbing, trying not to paint over everywhere. I feel like the looser you are with the dirt and the reflection, the better it'll look. And then if you spend more time on the leaves, make them look really realistic. It'll just, but also kind of loose too. You don't want it to be super realistic and everywhere else not. That could be a little too much of a difference. Okay, and then I'm going to add some of this over here in this dark pile that's against the glass. Now I'm going back in while it's still wet, grabbing more of that dark blue, dabbing and adding more. Next, I'm going to work some of these rocks and stones. Although, yeah, I'm not going to add too much detail or anything. So now I'm kind of blending that dark blue, making some rock shapes. But again, I just want to kind of hint that there are some rocks here. I don't want to like make them look perfect. I think I'm done with the dirt for now, so let's move on to the next step. Alright, I'm now going to start the next layer on the leaves. So for this next layer, we need to mix a green that is darker than the greens we've painted with. And for this green, I'll be using maybe a mixture of this green here and Nirvana. But yeah, of course you can use whatever green you want to use. Just make sure it's darker than the greens on that you already have on your leaves. So I'm going to take some of this green and I'm just going to mix it in here that I have, where I have this other green already. And then I'm going to take that Nirvana color and add that in. Add a little bit more water. I'm not going to add a lot of water because I do want this to be dark. Not too dark though, but basically like a mid-tone. Not too dark or not too light. So about here. I can't remember if I said this, but this is my size 4 round brush that I'm using. And then I'm going to have my size 8 round brush here with just water in it, and it will be my blending brush. I'm going to start with this leaf here, and I'm going to paint, this leaf is folded, so I'm going to paint at least it looks that way. It's kind of hard to tell in the picture, but my leaf that I have on my painting is going to be folded, so the farther away side I will paint darker. So I'm just going to draw like an outline here, wiggle my brush slightly so it's not a perfect line. It'll just make this look more realistic, and then take my blending brush here and blend this slightly, but I don't want to paint everywhere. I want that lighter green color, and then yeah, I'm just kind of gently blending this a little bit, and then down into the stem. And then I'll dab my brush to add more of that dark color down here in the stem, just like that. So as you will see, there's some of that previous layer exposed. That's what we want. And then I'm going to add some of this dark green here on the side. Switch to my blending brush. I did clean it a little bit and blend that green. Dab a little bit more, like so. Add a little bit more down here. I'm trying not to blend too much. I'm taking that green again. I'm going to add some where this leaf here is in front of this one, like it right here. So I am going to paint dark green right there on the side of the leaf. Take my blending brush, blend. And then blend this down. Dab in more of that dark green down the stem. And then I'm going to paint the middle of the leaf here. Paint in that line. Take my blending brush, following these lines in my outline here. And then dab more. This side I want it to be a little darker than this side, so I'm going to add a little bit more of this green kind of towards the outer edge. Blend. And then I'm going to add some of this dark green over here. Blend. I'm blending a little bit in that middle, but I'm leaving a lot of that lighter green. Next I'm going to add some dark green on this side. Blend. And I will add a little bit of dark green right here, but I'm leaving a little sliver right in the middle to mimic the that middle vein of the leaf. And then I think there was like a little leaf here. I don't know. It's hard to see in the picture, but I'm just gonna draw that in, but really it's probably just gonna morph into one leaf in my painting. Okay, and that's it for that layer. I'm gonna take the same green color and I'm just gonna add it in some areas in the soil, but only a few areas here and there. Maybe in the reflection next I'm going to mix an even darker green. So to this green, I will add, let's see, I'll add some of this Awake, this dark brown. So this will make it darker, but also kind of like a brownish green, gray color. I'm not going to add a lot of this, only a little bit like in the shadows. Mostly like where it's the darkest. Then I'll just dab this in some of the darkest areas. Cleaning my brush. Now we are about to add some final touches, some detail and more shadow, more contrast. So next I'm going to paint right here black. If you have black, you can use that. I'm trying to challenge myself and only use this set here. So I think instead I'm going to use that same color I used in the leaves, brownish green. So again, I'm mixing Awake, with the Nirvana color. Mixing these two colors together will create a dark brown gray color. And then I'm going to add it in this, on this part of the light bulb. And remember, there are some highlights. So I'm being sure not to paint everywhere with this dark gray color. Okay, and then I'm gonna see where else is like black basically. So there's a little bit right here in this crevice. I'm gonna mix some more. And for this color, yeah, I'm not really mixing a lot of water into it because I want it to be really dark. Add some here in the reflection. And then yeah, there's some in the reflection here. Going to go ahead and add some on the bottom of this area. I know in the reference there isn't this dark of a color, but this, like, I'm not painting underneath like the ground or anything. If I was, I would probably go off of the reference, but this will just help make it pop off the page, make it look more 3D. Because if you look at the reference, there's a highlight there instead of this dark black or dark gray color, because this is actually off the ground and there's light reflecting there. So I'll also add some down here. And in some areas of the soil, I'm adding this, the darkest darks. And then on the leaves, a little bit, just a little tiny bit. Okay, next I'm gonna add some really light gray right here, the crevices of that part of the light bulb. So I'm using that really dark color, but I'm adding a lot of water. And I'll go ahead and mix a little bit of this blue too into it. I'll just kind of outline the light bulb a little bit, help it pop off the page. And thinly paint in that area, those little lines. Then I'm taking a blending brush and blending these lines a little bit. And I think that's it. I don't want to like add too much to that area. I really like how it looks, so I don't want to mess it up. Actually, I'm going to add a little bit right here. Okay, I know I said that I was going to limit myself to this pan set, but I decided I'm going to have a little bit of fun and use some pink. So I was looking at this, wondering what is missing. There's a lot of cool colors, and I kind of want to add a warm to this. So right here is magenta from Schminke. So I'm just going to take some of this and add it here. You don't have to do this. I'm just going to add a little bit of pink because I just feel like it'll make this painting look more interesting. So yeah, if you have pink, feel free to use that. And I think I'm going to first add a little bit in like the highlights or the reflections of the light bulb. So I'm also blending with this brush. And dab a little bit there and here where it's wet. And I'm just going to leave it. And then I think I'll add some over here. And then I'll add maybe a little bit in this area. If you add this on top of the blue, it'll create purple, some purple, which is pretty. The trick is to try and be minimal with this. You don't want to, if you add a vibrant color like this that isn't exactly like, what's the word? That it doesn't really belong in real life. At least in my opinion, it's good to keep it minimal. I'm going to add some in the soil here and there. And then just a little tiny bit in these leaves or around them. If you use this magenta around the green and the leaves, it'll really help make them pop because magenta and green are complements. So I'm going to especially add this around these leaves here, and it will make them pop and just make this piece more interesting. You could have even more fun by adding some splatters. So to do that, I'm taking my size 1 silver black velvet stripped brush, loading it with that pink and some water, and then just kind of flicking. I might also add some more with another color that I used. Okay, next I'm going to get out my white gouache here. You don't have to do this, this is optional, but it'll add a little bit more to your painting. I'm using Winsor & Newton Designer's Gouache in Permanent White. I'm taking my size 4 round brush, and I'm just gonna add some of this to the most brightest highlighted areas of this light bulb. So down here there's like a reflection highlight, and over here, and it's especially a good idea to use this right next to like a dark color. It'll just add a lot more interest and depth. So there's like a big highlight here. I don't want to paint over like all of this. I'm only adding just a little tiny bit. And then yeah, over here. Then I'm gonna add some right here